Hey guys, it's Andy Timmons.
Robert Keeley.
Hello. And we've had an amazing time here at AMS. Much thanks to Russ.
And Ryan.
We got it right this time. And so we spent a bunch of time talking about all our gear.
Like the Octa Psi?
The
4-in-1 drives?
The 4-in-1 drives, the Halo, the Mark III. Anyway, we hope you guys enjoy the content.
It was a blast.
Really loved our time here. Everything was just so well done. So cheers to AMS.
Russ and Ryan, thank you so much. You guys are totally great. I love you guys. Cannot wait to come back up here.
Amen to that. Love you guys. Peace and love.
Robert and Andy,
Hello.
thank you for coming.
Great to be here.
So prior to us sitting down, Robert kind of let me know a little something about collaborating with artists. And he said one of the most nightmarish things you've ever had to deal with was someone as picky as Andy.
I'm surprised he still talks to me, actually. You know.
Well, yeah, you said, "Oh, just slap your name on the pedal. It'll be great. We'll sell 1 million of them." So
Not
is that
so
true?
fast,
No?
Robert Keeley.
I would think, though, that that's probably the hardest part when you do collaborate with somebody who wants 50 iterations of a pedal. You're like, dude, it's an overdrive. And your ears are notoriously picky. So how much back and forth, before you come to the version of the pedals that we see in front of us, how much back and forth was there and how awful was it?
Well, the beauty of the word awful is that it was never awful.
No.
But I think it took a lot longer than any of us might have considered initially. When we started working on the Halo specifically, you know, I had a pretty specific idea of what I was looking for. And Robert and his team had already been working on a new cool Echo platform called the Echoes.
Exactly.
So I think we kind of thought, well, we get together and we look at his existing Echo and listen to all the iterations of the things that I've loved over the years, the original Memory Man, the EP3 tape Echoes, and even an old Chandler Echo I used to use. Their first digital stereo Echo had modulation on the repeats. So there was a specific thing I was going for. But once we kind of got into the trenches and really started comparing all the different things that I loved, and everybody's ears started to get on the same plane, then it was about, I don't know, 2 years.
Yeah.
You know.
It definitely took some time because when he first came down, I think it was like February 13th, 2020. It was right as COVID was fixing to change the world,
before
right?
times, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know what to expect working with an artist like this at all, but I knew my team was on the cusp of creating some really great stuff. We were working with this French DSP chip called the Dream chip, and it was giving us just great results. And he was supposed to come up, and the idea was just like, hey, listen to a dotted eighth into a quarter note and put some modulation on it. And I'm like, okay, well, we can do that.
Right.
And then when we heard his setup and heard how he had set up his timeline, and then we heard how he set up the dual memory men, I realized we were in a totally different league as compared to anything we had done with a drive circuit. You know, this was really complex. This was going to take us a lot of time and effort to figure out how to get these echoes or these delays to weave together and create this magic that was occurring when he was playing. You know, it wasn't a simple thing of adding two sound effects together at all anymore. It literally took us a long time to figure out how to do that, you know.
Once we were going back and forth, because obviously the pandemic did put a damper on the world, to put it mildly. But once we dug in, it was about 1.5 years. And the beauty is that Robert and the guys are up in Oklahoma City, which is about 3 hours north of where I am in McKinney, Texas, North Texas. So we did everything, you know, as far as the real listening in each other's studios. They would drive down to my place, or I would go up there. And again, it never seemed contentious or like, oh man, this is hard. You know, there was a joy of really not wanting to settle for anything that we thought would exceed everything else that I'd been really dialing in. And kudos to our good friend Daniel Steinhardt, if we had a horn.
Yeah.
The designer of the G3 and the pedal show guys. You know, I was at a NAMM show. It would have been 2019, I think, right?
Yes.
And it was a matter of, I was talking to Daniel, who's obviously in contact with every manufacturer due to his show and his penchant for knowing things about guitar tone.
And buggery.
As he does. And I don't know about the buggery part, but what does that actually entail? But entail. This is horrible. We'll cut all this out. But long story short, I went to Daniel and said, look, I'm looking for somebody to help me with this idea that I have. And he goes, Robert Keeley. Without even he didn't even, it was a natural first inclination. He walked me right over. It was the beauty of being at the NAMM show. Everybody's in the room and takes me over to Robert and he says, that sounds like a great idea. But again, the heart and soul behind it wasn't about, okay, we need to make this product because sell. It was, there's this thing we're after. It seemed like kind of a grail thing because it's just a sound that I've always been a fan of a reverberant tone from the guitar solo in George Harrison's I Saw Her Standing There, the Beatles flip side to One Hold Your Hand. When I was a little kid, that was my favorite sound, drenched in reverb. So the way I use echo is a bit like a reverb, and what we spent so much time getting to happen in the most organic way, which can happen with tape echo and a good analog couple of echoes, is the way the echoes get out of the way and kind of feather into each other when they're both feeding each other and not being so much, noticeable repetitions, but just this ambient, it's a halo. It's really, as I considered, like a halo around the note that just gradually gets a little more out of tune as it goes by and just kind of creates this incredible space, around the note.
Yeah. You see what I mean? It took a lot to get to translate all that happens in that halo effect, where when you're playing, there's not a lot of echo chatter going on. It's just a halo to your notes. But if you stop, it's all there.
Yeah.
All the echoes are rhythmically there, and the modulation is perfect.
It is key. So, but again, at each point, if we might change one thing, okay, that's cool, but it affected the other. So the thing I love to say about the process, and Aaron Pierce, another huge part of the triangle of Robert and I, because he was a good mediator, he could kind of explain to Robert what I was feeling, because sometimes these things are hard to put into words as far as when you're collaborating on any kind of musical audible thing. If you're communicating over email, it kind of needs to be a little darker and more purple or whatever, however you can try to verbalize. But when we were in the room and we felt the goosebumps go up,
it's like magic.
There were moments like that. I was like, okay,
it is oftentimes magic.
You couldn't have done that, without us being in the room together. And of course, Aaron Pierce was a wonderful part of that because he really understood what I was going for. And then of course, Aaron Tackett, who helped with all the coding.
Can you say that there was a moment for the Halo in particular where all three of you were like, it's done?
There was multiple times of excitement and encouragement. So it wasn't just like the last epiphany of the biggest goosebump, but it was kind of a continuation of like, yeah, but we need to work on this, or what Robert, spends so much time with is the noise, issues and how to get things to work.
Yeah.
Something that I always get so impressed whenever he starts talking to me about how he is continually evolving his pedal designs in search of improvement, and it's still happening.
Yeah,
with some of the newer pedals
all the
coming
time.
out
this month.
month, if he wants to get into detail, but it's so incredible how he's able to find wherever there's just a little bit of distortions or unwanted distortions or noises.
So with the drive though, right? You have like a dip switch that goes from RK and AT.
Okay, yes, that's the Mark III driver.
Yeah.
This one now, this is like a third iteration for us.
Yeah.
So the reason I knew Robert Keeley's name in the first place was I'd stolen a pedal. Somebody loaned me a pedal and I never gave it back.
Steal, loan.
I mean, it's and then statute of limitations in Texas. I think I'm good now. My good buddy Nick loaned me. It was a Keeley modded blues driver, and he knew my playing and the sounds like, I think you're gonna like this, and he was right. I tried to give it back to him now after, we've come up with all these other revisions to that circuit that I love so much. He goes, no, that needs to be in your museum. It's like, okay, fair enough. If there ever is a museum.
I love how he offered once. You said, yeah, I'll keep it.
No, I didn't even. Anyway, I did karmically try to give it back after quite a long. But so the thing is that, the foundation was there, but we did something called the AT Super Mod, which was at a point where I was like, man, this is great. I want to change a little bit of the low end, try to carve a little bit of that. I mean, it worked really great. But then I was like, wow, if we could just try this, have a mode that was even a little less, that I could get, some lower register things to speak a little bit better. And this was one that it had several sessions. It's not quite.
It's actually the same. It's very similar to the Halo because all the development with the sound and the processing of the sound is going on at one level. And then there's me and the engineers at this other level working and discovering all different kinds of, limitations and excitement with our own piece of machinery, because this is not a copy of anything else. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're not taking off the shelf components and well, we are taking off the shelf components, but we're not modeling this after a piece of Boss gear or Ibanez gear or Eventide or what have you. You know what I mean? So at the same level that he's talking about working on the sounds, there's all kinds of different technical aspects to my team building this thing, and my engineers. Like we were in a new case, so we were like, hey, Andy, we can actually make a compressor in here. We can put a compressor on here, and we can put the drive side over here. And so we play with these ideas back and forth. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And he'll run off to Texas with one with a compressor in it on the switch.
We've tried a few different approaches to get to what I was hearing, and it ended up being okay. So let's try a germanium diode.
Exactly.
And that's. If anybody's curious, if you've watched this long, you're curious. One of my favorite sounds in the Mark III is the AT mode, which is the tone stack. So that's going to be a little less low end compared to the original RK, which would be the Keeley Mata Blues driver that I stole.
Right.
And then the RK mode here, that puts it into the germanium diode, and it's incredible. It's a whole different pedal.
Sure.
And the tone is similar, but that gets it. That's what it needed to. It's a little less compressed, a little more open, and it just shaved away the part of the low end that I was hoping to. So in my normal setting, where I would use it for my neck pickup, kind of slightly broken up tone, all the nocturnes that I'm recording is that sound. But you can crank the drive and the tone back about there, and it's an incredible lead tone. So that was a very unexpected thing. It's like a bonus pedal for me. That's why I have 3 Mark III drivers on my board.
We noticed.
I've got one set up in the AT mode, everything kind of noonish, and that's my clean sound. Really, it's backed off from the gain. But then I'll also use in the RK mode. If I turn the drive and the tone right about there, I use this as a boost on my main lead tone, which is the JHS AT pedal. One of the common issues with dialing in a really nice, warm lead bridge pickup tone is if you go to the neck, it's going to be muddy.
Right.
So what I'm doing now is if I hit the AT pedal with the Mark III in the germanium mode, it gets rid of that low end. So when I go to the neck pickup, I get more brightness out of it, and it smooths it out. And now that's my second lead tone.
Okay.
Then I've got a third one where I crank it in the germanium mode. And
So practically, since we're breaking these out, we just did the Gary Moore song, The Loner.
Yes.
What did you do? Like, what did you utilize from?
Well, today it was just the AT pedal and the halo. So if I'd needed to go for the neck hot lead tone, that would have been that. Though we did 2 versions, depending on which version you play for them. On the second take, we broke it down at the end, and I went to the neck pickup, and I wanted a cleaner tone, so that's when I go to the Mark III.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it can be so I am a gain control freak. So that's why there's at any given point there's 5 or 6 gain pedals. They're just all slowly turning into Keeley.
Well, and you have to justify having them. And you're like, honey, these all do different things.
and they do. I mean, one will be fine, and you can. If I were able to bend down, at my age, I don't recommend it.
He won't come back.
And I'll never come back. There was a Spinal Tap moment where he couldn't quite get back up.
A little green globule.
It was a little green globule. We can't dust for globules, or maybe you can. So that's what that's all about. Mark III madness.
You have 3 of them on there, and I noticed
do.
that they're
4th
all
is on the way.
They're set to radically different settings too. It's really impressive how you have so much variation there on those tones. They're not subtle variations.
They're not subtle, and I don't do as much session work as I did in my younger career, but I still do stuff, and it's remarkable. I could pretty much do every session with just a Mark III AT and a halo and get just about every tone I need. But it's just down to this. This is the most versatile drive pedal. Not getting into the 4-in-1 series, because these are incredible.
Well, they're all garbage.
They're remarkable in their own right, but this is so dialed for what I'm going for that I'm just blessed to have a guy like Robert that puts up with me and wants to hang and get stuff, great. And I just settle for it. It's not about slapping my name. And there's never, yeah. if I'm gonna have a signature anything, it's got to be exactly what I'm using. I would.
It's got to raise goosebumps.
Yeah, it's got to raise goosebumps.
You got to have the hair come up on your arm. If it doesn't have that, it's not
Doesn't
ready.
pass the test.
It's definitely not.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the problem with being saddled with integrity.
Let's not bother with integrity. No, let's not bicker arguing over who killed who.
But,
It's a festive occasion.
Robert, you alluded to magic, and I kind of pointed at you at that point because it's something I've been kind of thinking about. Like Tom Petty apparently said at some point, he's like, the closest thing we actually have to magic is music.
Yeah.
And taking something out of this and putting it out in the air and making that happen. And much like being a songwriter or a musician, for you, creating something with somebody and collaborating on a pedal and then having it come to fruition is somewhat magical. And you almost don't know it until you land on it. And so the amount of back and forth, while probably excruciating at some point, was worth it. And so how do you replicate that? I mean, the thrill of making something out of nothing and having it become...
He's trying to make this painful. First he said awful, then he said excruciating. But
because we were talking outside.
I'm just being honest because
Blissful,
this joy that you see on this man's face and everybody, they enjoy that process. And I think there's probably
He's a sadist.
the thought that there's a challenge. Dark and light somewhere. Let me be the middle ground here. It never felt like that. I mean, at least in my home.
Yeah.
Maybe when he gets back to
Behind closed doors, it was
maybe you
different.
can tell. Is
Is he gone?
No, it's never like that.
I don't feel like that. And now I can take myself out of the equation because I've also seen just their ongoing development with other pieces of gear that I have no involvement in, but I see the same joy and the same excitement when they're releasing stuff. And that's just a joy for me because we were talking this morning sometimes we'll get in, he'll start into some really technical conversation about stuff that just honestly goes over my head. But I'm the same way in my music, which is on this really emotional level. But our trajectories are the same where we just, for the sake of getting better art, we're that committed to it regardless of anything else. And the joy of seeing it come to fruition, like whenever I release a song or a record, you're hoping that it's very selfish at first. This Halo was the most selfish thing I could have ever imagined. It's just what I needed, what I wanted, what I hoped for. The fact that it resonated, with so many players is incredibly gratifying. It's on Steve Lukather's board and the Mark III. This is my biggest influence in my guitar life, and we're buds now. But I send him the pedals. Just man, I hope you dig these. But it's like, no, dude, they're glued to the board. They're screwed down to the board, man. They're going. He loves them, and I'm like, I'm so blown away by that because talk about full circle. I couldn't have imagined that. But most of the great things that have ever happened in my career, I could have never really imagined it. You just have to go for it with this is saddled with integrity, like you say, is the hope, and just doing things that really resonate and that are in your heart. And I feel that with Robert and the company on a deep level. So
you have an Octa Psi on your board too.
Yes.
Let's talk about that too a little bit.
Okay, so this will be. I'll scratch the surface, and then he can
We're gonna do a
tell
whole
you.
video on it later. So
We should-
okay,
okay,
let's
this
thing
definitely
is sick.
touch upon how
okay.
you are using it in your live scenario.
Yes.
What type of jewels are you?
So if you don't know what it is, so it's basically an incredible sounding muff type fuzz, and it can be an octave, but it's a pitch shifter.
Yeah,
that'd be accurate.
You got
So
it.
what I immediately gravitated towards, and the way I have it set, is just a nice fat, muffy tone. Muffy.
Oh yeah, she's lovely.
A muffy tone, and as I it'll sound better if I get my settings.
There. Oh, it does sound better.
And then
now,
there you go. And then I put it into the octave down mode. So I use it, very much like an octave, like the old Boss octave divider or the Pog.
Yeah.
And so it's just a big fat octave and fuzz.
and it tracks so well.
It tracks great. And it's just, but it's dangerous because once you have that on, once you go to anything else, like this sounds
Take it
puny.
away.
It's like you need to go to the gym.
Take that pedal from him.
Yeah, don't
He's
let
using
him
it on
use that.
vocals now.
Okay, but Robert Keeley,
funny.
it's just it does so many other amazing things, like you said.
There's a cheat sheet on the back.
There's so many
I
Easter
had to
eggs.
put a
Yes,
cheat sheet on the back.
you will need a magnifying
idea.
glass for me.
How about you put an
know.
expression pedal on? And again, the versatility of all these things.
Right.
There's so many secret features, and I know Robert knows this, and we were going to talk about it in the sense that there are a lot of like going to a restaurant and finding a secret menu. There's so many features in these pedals that I don't even know if they're in the manual half the time. It's like, well, if you hold them both down and you turn the mid knob, you'll become a goblin for a week or something
Yes.
like happens.
We're shooting this on
working on my-
Halloween. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I am working on my manual writing skills. I'm not, you know, I can't read, right?
That's true. We know that,
You know
right?
what's interesting about Robert Keeley? He can't read. Did you know that? It's true.
I am working on my writing skills, however.
I think the manuals are great. If I can understand them,
Hey, we are
and I
getting-
have, even on my Halo, I still have to refer occasionally to, what's the factory reset, or what's the, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, the manuals are written by the technical staff
Fair enough.
there, and it's
They do
like
well.
so funny when I hand my manuals out to guys I went to high school with, you know, 30 years ago plus, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, Rob, what are you doing, man? I can't read this manual at all. It's too small. The print is too
The
small.
print.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I
they're-
see.
they want things to be, you know, very obvious, very intuitive and stuff like that. And so I've definitely taken a lot of measures. Like on the new Octa Psi, it even ships with a little cheat sheet, a
Yes,
little
that's
instruction,
really helpful,
quick
yeah.
start guide.
Yeah, yeah.
And the instructions are printed on the back there, so you don't have to go hunting too far if you can't remember it. But there's a lot of hidden features in there. There's a lot of
But that's the fun of it too. I
It
think
is.
part of what your pedals are great because this is very utilitarian in the scope and the way you're doing it. So being a Luddite, I could plug in and go, oh, that sounds good.
Yes.
I don't have to really muck about, you know, but then if I really want to delve into it too,
Yeah.
there's a testament to how
Yeah.
versatile these things are. And that's part of the fun. I mean, a lot of people are making pedals. A lot of people kind of retreat up their own, you know, wherever, and when they do it, you could see you guys are still having fun with it. And it's a tough, saturated market to come up with something genuinely different that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you land on your feet and do that. I mean, it's probably a lot of R&D, I'm sure, but you know it when you hear it.
It is a long process, and sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's blissful. You know, we can make a little thing where I can just see a little blip on my radar disappear, and I can be overjoyed and manic for a couple weeks at the shop. You know what I
Right.
mean? But you know, talk to Danny or anybody else at the shop. But you know, if things aren't, you know,
Okay.
evolving my way, it can be
There's the
months.
There's
of,
the painful part. Yeah, he finally got it out. He finally got it out. See, I'm not seeing all
yeah,
these
it
things.
can be like, you know, very frustrating when, you know, calendars are flipping over and you still haven't figured out what that, you know, sound is
Yeah.
that's getting on your last nerves.
Yeah.
You know
Those
what
are
I
the
mean?
days like, which Robert are we getting today? Oh, he's in the zone. It'll be fun. Oh, thank God.
Is it true that this pedal is one of the ones that you were looking at is one of the ones that is going to kind of endure from your entire line, like one of the flagships that you want to?
I say that because it really encompasses kind of like a dream for me to have an analog digital mixed system in which they integrate with each other so well. And it hasn't been done because I can't point to anything else. You know, Boss or Ibanez or Line 6 doesn't have anything, or Strymon doesn't have anything that I'm aware of where they've taken a vintage muff and integrated it so well with a DSP digital system. And so there's problems with a high gain analog circuit sitting so close and amplifying anything, you know, sitting next to a digital circuit where we have multiplexers and all kinds of crazy stuff, you know, taking care of all those features. So yeah, it was kind of a thing. I was like, I know this isn't done very often, if at all. So I hope that me and my team can make something that's really, really musical. You know what I mean? And so once you think you've got something figured out and you're like, okay, the muff sounds okay now. And then you integrate it here and it starts popping and making weird humming noises and doing weird stuff. And you're back to ground zero again. You know what I mean? It's like, why am I making a noisy sounding muff?
Well, there's plenty of those out there already.
There's a
I
lot of
know.
those out there.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a complete workout technically for me and my team. We've been, you know, building stuff together as a unit for about 10 years now, and so I think we're cranking out great stuff. But this was definitely challenging.
Yeah.
You know, from my perspective, at any rate.
And your vantage point too, which was surprising too, like you complex pedals, seems like from what I heard in like my homework of you that you actually like, you know, more relatively less complex pedals. Is that a true statement?
Well, no, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't like, I'm not into, say, having menus on my pedals
Sure.
yet. And displays and stuff like that. And we don't have a lot of pedals we don't have any pedals that have MIDI out. Matter of fact, we're working on MIDI stuff. So I like things to just simply sound good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, I do like to give people a lot of creative control. I like things to be really dynamic and very lively. Yeah. Not bright, but very lively, very responsive to your playing.
Let's talk about that too. You're giving them creative control, because from what I understand, you assist and help your engineers in even furthering their education.
Oh yeah,
we have huge.
two guys at the present moment going to school. We did for most of this year and last year have 3 guys, but one of them graduated, and he moved on. He was a programmer, but he moved on. But there's 2 guys now. My son and his.
Andy?
And
yeah, I never passed 6th grade. Me and Jethro. So I'm good at ciphering now.
Yeah. We got him on the GED program. No, but now there's 2 guys going to school to become electrical engineers now, and we've got Creighton. He's my electrical engineer, and Aaron Tackett's the DSP guy, and I love having the engineers around. I do start to worry because I can't dream up so many projects to keep them all busy. So I am wondering what we're going to do in about 4 or 5 years. But
well, that's the thing too. I mean, much like being a musician, do you ever fear like, well, what do I do when the ideas run out? And thankfully you haven't reached that point. But do you ever see it like on the horizon, like, we've done everything we possibly can?
Not even close, because I like to do stuff myself, and we don't have, like I said, we don't have our first MIDI pedal out. So we'll have a MIDI pedal next year, and
I've got plenty of ideas.
I think
whenever he goes, Andy, is there anything?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I mean, people are always giving me ideas.
I'm sure they are. I try not to pester.
Is there a whisper of another collaboration?
Oh yeah. Definitely. We're always talking ideas.
Careless whispers.
The cameras
I'm
aren't
not going to.
GED, by the way, is guitar every day.
Guitar every day.
That's the name of the next
Thank you.
collab.
That's going to be our. What was our opera that we just wrote a minute ago?
It was
Twiddler on the Roof.
right, and the Stinky Wrinkles. That was something else. It's a 2-part.
Sorry, we're wrapping up other things.
Yes.
It's the same with music though, because you would think that, oh gosh, everything's kind of been done. But I feel like when was it going around a few years ago, like lead guitar is dead or whatever. But it's so silly.
Every time they say
there's
that.
so much room for growth on the instrument and in the gear, and it's all about expression and creating beauty, and the pursuit of that. I can't think of anything more fun to be a part of.
It really is.
And feel like, how do we get away with this? This is what we get to do.
Well, that's a good point, because I envision, Andy going, okay, listen, I'm going to take a trio, and we're going to play live, and we're going to play Sgt. Pepper from front to back.
From memory.
and right, and
Not
you
go back.
Sometimes it's not just coming up with something new. It's about being, that's pretty audacious. And then it's like, good luck with that. And he's like, oh, he's serious. He's going to do it.
Well, that was a labor of love that I didn't expect to come to fruition. It was kind of a challenge we were doing a version of Strawberry Fields, and my Italian promoter said, you should do a whole night of Beatles. No way. But then I started, well, what if I did? Anyway, I just decided at some point it'd be fun to sit down and play Sgt. Pepper just for me in that kind of solo guitaristic, like I had done the Resolution record. The long story short, it just kind of fell into place, and we were in the studio and we had extra time, and the drummer, Mitch Marine, who I knew would be the perfect drummer on it because he's very Ringo but modern. Anyway, long story short, but there were many times along the way that I thought, this isn't going to work. This is too ambitious.
How long was the prep time on that?
I worked on the arrangements for a couple years, but it was like a hobby.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't had the pressure yet of thinking I was going to actually do this. It was just like, let's just see if I can do it.
Right.
And over that period of time, okay, you get some skills, and it does kind of come from the jazz lineage of, Wes Montgomery and Joe Pass chord melody solos, which I studied quite a bit over my guitar
Every day.
student that I'm currently in, always trying to learn. But these guys, would voice melodies and harmony. It's very different with a rock guitar tone. You can't get away with as many voices usually, but it's just a fun thing to do. And then but finally got to the point where like, this is going to work. And again, it was just because and the detail that I put into that, I was just hopeful that people of my age, everybody of course, but if people grew up with that record like a lot of people did, that they would understand the detail that I put into it. And that was the feedback I would get from a lot of my heroes that were gracious enough to listen to it. That was a success for me. It was never about, let's try to make what would be a commercial endeavor that I could. No, it was just, I love this music. It's in my heart. And then if I can connect with other fans of that music. But what the strange thing was that I would get emails from people like, yeah, you know, I've never been a Beatles fan, but I like this record. It's like, it was such a foreign, but it was a presumptuous and silly idea that, oh, everybody loves the Beatles. Well, of course, that's not the case. If they didn't grow up with it, or maybe whatever they heard didn't resonate, but it was literally from the cradle for me, because I was born in '63, and I had a brother 12 years my elder. So it was just always in the household. So it couldn't be a more just obvious part of my musical being. It's just there. You know, I have no choice. It's just, but you know, okay. So if it's turning some other people on to Sgt. Pepper, that seems like a crazy idea, but that was the case. It was.
Well, it's such a crazy thought. Like, you know, I'm going to do this live in a trio. It's like when you listen to it with headphones on, you realize that this is like Mount Everest. You're like, yeah, but I'm going to scale it because it's there, and you could have failed miserably.
Thank you. There's always that I have that ability every day. Yeah.
Well,
you never know.
We're all there, but
yeah.
No, it really worked. Obviously.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate
you had a
that
question.
very much.
I was interrupting you. And
No, not at all. But you know, I'm looking at your pedal board too, and you know, we've talked with a number of folks where sometimes their board's been the same for.
Oh gosh,
I mean, since they started, and they just, it's tried and true, and they never really drift.
Sure.
Do you kind of find yourself you don't strike me as that.
It changes so often that it drives my board building guy not crazy, but it's always in fluctuation because you're always experimenting.
He's a board building guy.
He's got a gag.
A guy who tolerates me to when I'm just not very good at anything else but barely play guitar, but assembling things in an organized fashion. Daniel Steinhardt was the first guy that had an intervention with me. And there's a video of him building my pedal board in a hotel room in Germany. He saw me on tour with Simon Phillips and says, mate, I'm going to build you a pedal board. And so we figured out what I wanted on the board. He literally builds the board in a hotel the day of the first gig.
Wow.
And we were playing the Music Mess in Frankfurt.
Wow.
So you can search Andy Timmons pedal board, Daniel Steinhardt, and see that. But long story short, I you know, you're always searching. I see the beauty of, you've got your Vox Y, your Tube Screamer, and whatever, a couple of pedals that always work, and that's fantastic. But I'm always reaching and searching. There's always gonna be, there's things that will be on this board probably the rest of my life, but there'll be a fair amount of other things that are gonna be swapped out. But you know, when you come to the Mark III and the Halo, the things that, you know, have been so intimately involved with, and again, with Robert and the team, you know.
Forever pedals.
They're forever pedals, Robert.
Hold hands.
Forever boy.
You need to cut for a minute.
You're my boy.
You need a tissue?
I need a minute.
But it's interesting because the pedals, like that makes sense. That's what I kind of assumed, that there are ones that come in rotation and some that stay on for a long time.
Yeah.
Yet your amps, not so much. Like,
well, that's the thing.
kind of been like no, I'm staying with that. That's.
You know, there's certain things that's like cables too, or strings and picks. There's certain elements of my tone that I tend to just base everything around. Now with the amps, it's kind of it's a movable target right now, because, you know, sadly Mesa stopped making the Lone Star years ago now. So they're getting, like, for today we use the Fillmores.
Sounded great.
They sound really, really good. It's just not quite what I'm used to. But I also like the straight up Marshall Plexi circuit. And so there's some amps out there like that I like a lot. And I may be working on an amp with a particular company.
You don't know?
I don't know who it is, and I would not mention.
Crate.
It could. I just want to bring the wood back. My first recording session I ever did was with a Crate.
Yeah, was it really?
The sound was not Crate, but it was hey, but it's what I had, man.
Yeah.
It was actually borrowed from my brother John, so it was a borrowed Crate.
Secondhand crates are
Secondhand crate. I almost bought one years ago at a used little music shop, and my better angels talked sense to me, because I would have had to, like, how am I going to check this in my suitcase?
I'll just interrupt you. You were going to tell us the brand, which was.
Oh, yeah, the brand. I'd rather let it go further down the road, but it's very, very promising. You know, it's. So yeah, I like I say, the Lone Star had been the platform for so long. So it's just sad that it's no longer around, but life goes on. I still use them quite a bit at home in my old Marshall stuff. And always, you know, that part I do experiment with more recently. I just like the less variables, then it gives me the something a secure, safe place to experiment.
And that's it too. I mean,
you know what I mean?
You could get your tone from you playing. It just sounds like you. We were standing out there, and I'm listening to it. I'm like, and you were like, well, it's kind of there. I'm thinking, what is all the way there?
Well, there's a molecular level when you're that intimately involved with every little nuance off that string.
Sure.
The goal is, you saw me in action where I get there as quickly as I can. If it's on I did some demos when the Fillmores came out, but it was a smaller combo amp, but I've never played through the 100-watt thinking that the headroom would be right for me. And they're great sounding amps. When I plugged in and just checked out the clean sound, immaculate. It's really great, but it wasn't necessarily the right platform for my, this is not necessarily good promo for the amp. I would say it's just not what I was used to. So I had been sound checking, playing the loner through my old Plexi, so I'm a little spoiled with that particular tone, but it does sound as good as I could get it, and hopefully it sounds great.
It did, and
Thank
it
you.
explained all the yelling, like when you guys were going through the song. Like, I think, he didn't actually hit you that one time, or?
I missed. I swung.
Well, he's very thin.
It's like Babe Ruth. You got to swing. You got to.
But we're talking, obviously the fun part of of finding a great amp.
Thank you.
And sometimes you can find a great amp and it's a great platform.
Sure,
for
of course.
and pedals are the fun part. We all get into it now. It's become this own separate thing. When you go to a gig, you'd say, what guitar are you using? What amp are you using? Everyone goes to your board now. Everyone wants to see
for
what
sure.
you've got.
And that's the amp that I'm trying to help create. I want there to be, and it's going to be selfish at first. It's going to be, okay, this is the perfect pedal platform amp for me. And I've never had that access with an amp company. Strangely, I never had that opportunity with Mesa. But I have somebody very willing and able to go down that path with me, as I'm hoping to the same detail that Robert Keeley would.
That's impossible.
And I'm very, very, very encouraged by the potential there. So watch the space, as they say.
So that brings us though to the old standby here. Now I
Whoopee.
called it Excalibur, and you told me it's actually the Whoopee.
Yeah, well, that's what it's been referred to as. I never really name my guitars or anything for that matter.
That's seen a few shows.
This has been it's a sobering fact where I've been playing this half my life. So I'm 61. This guitar was built 30 years ago.
Can you just do the math?
So that's
Fact checked.
almost yeah. But it's been through it, and people do complain about the broken pickguard.
Love it.
50-50.
Nope, leave it.
How many fret jobs?
I would. That's the thing. It's 8 or possibly 9.
Wow.
That's pretty intense.
That's a lot of fretting.
Sure is.
But it's held up remarkably well. Yeah, I was told by my luthier once that the neck will eventually just dissolve into dust, but it still holds up. And off camera, you've seen the newest iteration of the guitar, the ATZ 300, which I'm really happy with. That's the one I used on the Gary Moore tune because it's a mahogany body, whereas this is the classic Strat style alder and maple. So there was a guitar in the 2000s called the AT300 that was a mahogany body, rosewood board, but pickups mounted directly into the body. So the new one has got the mounted pick guard. It's all black, classic. Non-mole black. So it's a fromo.
I love the British Andy.
It's a cheesy. It's a fromo. So now I kind of have that's kind of like an in-between, best of both worlds. So it's more versatile than the old AT300. The thing about the pickups into the body, it's a really aggressive, punchy tone, and it's great. But this kind of, within the pick guard, it kind of softens it up a little bit, get a little more stratty activity out of it.
Well, we're thankful that eventually you'll have a new guitar and you can get rid of that one.
I was going to
to
say,
a fresh one.
Scrapwood.
I said, why are you still carrying around that old thing? Yeah, the Whoopee. It is a bit of a security blanket because I even have other production model versions of it that actually I think sound better. It's a couple pieces of wood but I have quite an intimate connection with this guitar. So
What's the one that we have that Aaron Tackett uses? The AT100?
I'm not sure he may have it may be an ATZ 100.
ATZ 100. That's what
Is that the one?
Right.
And that's what we use to develop all our DSP because there's a huge range of output from those pickups, and we know that if we're not distorting the digital side of any of our stuff, then Andy won't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well, that's a great question
we,
too.
we use those guitars quite regularly every day, as a matter of fact.
You have to try your pedals when you're doing the R&D. I would think like, wow, we were using a Strat this whole time and it was glorious. And then someone tries it with a Les Paul and you're going, I didn't think of that one.
Right.
So you probably have to use a number of different.
Have to.
Yeah.
They've got a great collection of guitars.
That's why I got a guitar collection. That's why.
That's why.
I tell the
Clocking
IRS.
it
That's exactly. It's all work related.
It's all work related.
Yes.
Is there any pedals that it would be fun to know that you played from the Keeley history that make their appearance on the boards outside of the MK3?
I do have a version of the comp on there. Robert, if
Underneath?
can you lift up the board?
the compressor
Because
underneath.
I don't know what iteration it is. Obviously, Robert is
Yep,
quite
you
well.
got a Comp Plus.
It's a Comp Plus.
Yep.
So
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
you know, I had a signature compressor with the Carl Martin company for a lot of years, but eventually I stopped doing it. They had to change their manufacturing but my old compressor was quite good, but I've gotten quite fond of the Compressor Plus. It does a great job.
That's a pedal I'd like to do with you, is a compressor in the new enclosure. As a matter of fact, somebody I think yesterday or
we go.
even
All
this
started
morning
here.
was like, "Hey, when are you going to put a new?" I know it was today. I think somebody was like, "Put a new compressor in here."
Yeah.
I'd love to.
So
do
the
that.
thing that was great about my old design was that there was part of the compressor circuit that I liked just as a boost. And so I was just hitting the front end of my amps pretty hard, but with not much compression. So the reason I ended up in a dual combination, which if we could do that and make it foot switchable with a TRS, because I would set up one side as like the heavy.
We can do that. That's okay.
Can we do that?
okay.
I
Not a
should
problem.
I know smart people. So one side would be the traditional, nice and crunchy to get that good, clean tone that we love so much. But then another side that's just a bit milder and capable of that good front end boost. You know what I mean? But
And there's an art to that.
That would be an honor. I mean, to work with this guy, the master of compression.
Well, that's it. It was probably one of the first evergreens for you, where the Keeley compressor is. I mean, it's on a million
classic.
boards everywhere. But I think that it's a lost art, using compression and using it correctly.
Sure.
I don't know. How would you describe what a compressor is for? What do you use it for? Because you're saying you could use it for a boost. Some people want to squash the signal. I mean,
Sure.
Everyone understands gain and delay and stuff like that to some degree, but compression is almost like this ethereal kind of thing that's tough to nail.
It's interesting for me. I don't want to. Robert can, I'm sure, go a lot deeper than I can. For me, traditionally it was to get that good glassy, stratty, clean kind of tone where you dig in and it's chewy, So it's kind of leveling out things, right? It's compressing, so you can dig in and it just when you dial it right, it can be a very pleasant. I think of Todd Rundgren's old clean sounds, or maybe the Fix, on some of those tracks. But I never really considered it something that I wanted in my lead tones until at one point I put a gain box before a compressor, and like, this is not how it's supposed to be theoretically run. It sounded amazing. So I think there's a lot of uses that I haven't really explored or am using right now, but I get the feeling that I would though if we go down that path and I really stare at it, closely. Right.
Compressors are a great way to fatten up your signal because they bring down the peaks that might be, a lot of high frequency detail or something.
Right.
And so they bring those down so your ear's not so offended. And when you don't quite pick something hard enough, it brings the whole thing up. So your chords sound a lot more even,
And they're
to
sustaining
the audience.
They're sustaining in a way that you wouldn't get without that.
There's all different kinds of compression, but in general, that's what I think most people want it for, is to make your guitar just sound a little bit fatter, a little more correct. For a intermediate or beginner guitar player, and they're trying to
Beginners.
Oh, yeah.
medium rare.
always a beginner.
But I think that's a really good way of putting it. We all love distortion. Everyone likes to sit in the room and use a lot of gain and just, it makes it easier to play.
Yeah.
But I always likened compression to adding to your clean signal in a way that makes it more forgiving and more, you can rip a little bit more. And you're right, it does kind of cover up a little bit of those mistakes.
Yeah.
It can, but just like a high gain pedal does, like when you play different things, that compression and that high gain, they're doing the same thing except for cleans.
But I mean,
Perfect.
Being maybe intermediate plus, most of my world is in dynamics. It's about, but the compressor can really be an amazing tool for cleaner lead playing, but that chewy thing that I'm talking about, where you still can get the dynamic, but you can dig in a way that doesn't leap out too much. So it doesn't take too much away if you dial it in right, and can be.
And it's one of those
feel
effects,
friend.
I think people don't even know it when they're hearing it. That's the cool thing.
Oh,
Like,
for
you step
sure.
on a distortion pedal, he stepped. Like, if you listen to the riff in Black Dog, I mean, without compression, what is that riff?
Yeah, right on.
Think about it. I mean, he must be feeding two compressors into. I mean, like, try to make your guitar sound like that next time.
Right.
Everyone knows the riff, but you're like, it doesn't sound anything like.
Yeah.
You know what
It's
I mean?
louder, and the amp is probably fairly cleanish, right? And it's
Yeah,
just,
with Page, yeah, probably.
yeah. There's
and,
not a lot of gain going on at that point.
and I think that's the beauty of it. So everyone go out there and get yourself a compressor.
Yes.
And mess with it.
Messy.
Yes.
Turn the knobs. Don't worry about presets. Just turn stuff till it sounds cool. to you.
Twiddler on the roof. as you
Twiddler
call it.
on the roof. I think it's a musical. Watch for it. We're gonna.
So I got one last question.
Oh, you get the last one?
That's the last. That brought us to the end.
You can
We just
interject.
ended the
I
interview,
have
Ryan.
one particular one that I've been wanting
Did
to
you?
ask too. He alluded to it earlier. Was the pedal industry is just flooded with pedals, and like making yourself heard, making yourself relevant. You're doing fantastic at it. I mean, you got the foreign ones.
You are doing
have
very well, by the way.
The Octa Psis, you're doing MK3s. It's just one after the next. What's your take on just the whole pedal industry as it stands right now?
I think I've been asked that kind of recently because it's at a weird position now where there's lots and lots of pedal companies, and the number of companies that are doing, say, weird sounding or glitchy type things or very, very strange ambient reverbs, they've kind of maybe played that out a little bit. And so I think it's going to be back to a matter of who's innovative. And so that's what I tried to put so much effort and time into this Octa Psi and getting it right so that it was very musical to play. Because you can only do a tube screamer so many times and people are only interested in so many different paint jobs and stuff like that. I still think it's a golden time to be in circuits and pedals because there are so many great tools now at our disposal to make better and better sounding things. So it's again like limited to your imagination. If you're wanting to create, capture this halo effect, and it's a great time to do it because now there's plenty of tools for me to be able to put together a really good sounding system and put these ideas on it. So.
It's been fun for me as a friend and a fan of Robert to see how other pedal manufacturers kind of freak out about what Robert's doing. There was a clip that got posted yesterday of the new Zoma, which has got the tremolo and reverb circuit. And it's, behind the scenes, I know how hard they've worked to get this signal to noise and eliminate all distortions. And Josh Scott was just riffing on his Facebook channel, saying this is an amazing sounding pedal. He put it up against another competitive brand, said it sounds better than that. So it's fun and gratifying for me to see people that really know the high end of what's going into these designs appreciate it on the level that I know that he deserves. So it's been amazing.
The pedal industry is full, but I still think it's a great place to be, and I think there's still lots of new and fun pedals coming out.
Yeah. It's like it is. I keep drawing the parallel to it's the same as music. So much has been done. You just got to do things that you love, and if you come at it from that spirit, I think it always comes around, and people resonate with it when they feel that again saddled with integrity and
You can
positive intent. I don't know. Am I crazy here?
No.
Do I want to?
Because I think both of you are. I think the similarity is that you're coming at it as fans of music.
For sure.
You're not just
100%.
executing. It comes down to you love making pedals, and it's obvious. You love making music. It's when it stops becoming fun.
Right.
That's why people take up golf. I assume
They can go be frustrated at that for a while. Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, that's the beauty of it. So it's been a fruitful relationship. But, like you said, you have to please yourself first. You guys made that pedal and you went, I love it. And, oh, great. 8 billion other people like it too. But you don't know until you put it out there.
You never know with music. You never know with this type of art either. You hope that people dig it because, everybody wants to be loved. No doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just keep going at it with that attitude and things tend to work out okay.
I love working with this dude because the stuff that we learned in the Halo gets translated to the stuff that we did in the drive pedals. Because when you have the Halo on and you have to keep things very quiet and the switching has to be very quiet.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that those little switch noises don't get caught up in the Halo echo.
Yeah, that's right.
Then when I went back to design and drive pedals, all that clicking from the switches and the circuits making all kinds of noise, I was like, man, we can't introduce this into a Halo, type of pattern. So that ended up having us, because of where we stretched there, improved all of our drive pedals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that type of mentality then leaked over to the Octa side. Well, we just can't have switching noises. It can't do something unmusical, you know, when you're trying to pitch shift, you know, or whatever, you know. So they just keep on building. And then the stuff I learned from that, you know, made the Beach Boys pedals really great. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The stuff I learned from that made the Zoma even better than
All
it
connects.
could ever be. Yeah. So
Which pedal came
all
after the Noble
related to
Screamer?
Andy Timmons.
Yeah. What's that?
It's all related to you.
Oh, that, I'm
all
sore
about
about
you.
that. You too. I didn't mean
It's
it.
British handed.
You want to be alone?
We got a room. I mean, we got a yellow chair.
Very
We
thin
did
wall.
try to
He's
talk
got-
the
he's
guy
got
last
his-
night into giving us one
Got my
room. I think it
boots?
was Danny who was wanting to share a room.
He wasn't into
The
that.
guy was like, no.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. I was going to ask you that question too before we leave. Are there those times?
What, nice segue. Where are we headed?
No, but you're the boss, and you go, "This is the greatest pedal. I'm going to do this." And you read the room, and they're like, "I don't see it." Like where it's like that's a bad idea.
Quite
or-
frequently, and it's I feel sorry for my guys because you can tell I get excited
mad
about
scientist.
my own ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the mad scientist type. My smart guys are the guys in the other rooms next to me. You know, Creighton and Aaron Tackett. But I get excited about these sounds, and I get excited about pushing a button and having a diminished seventh chord come out. I mean, how rude is that?
Is that a real example? Real
Yeah,
world
that's
example?
a perfect example.
Yeah,
The
the
stacked
Octa Psi.
fourths just sounding all alien.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I can get excited, and I can think that every other guitar player would love to do this. And they're like, I don't know how we're going to sell this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is a battle trying to keep my own excitement and you
So
know,
what's one that never
in check.
never made production that you were
Oh,
like,
I've made sure I got my way all the time.
oh yeah.
It's good to be the
Truth
boss.
comes
right?
out. That's right.
Yeah, no. I don't know. We're working on great stuff. We have MIDI controlled analog drives in our future. We have our first tube based pedal coming.
Tube.
Yeah, tube.
Wow.
I know, it's so exciting.
We look forward to seeing what's coming next. I mean, it was a pretty ballsy move to have 4 drive pedals come out at once, too. I mean, it was just
This
like,
year has
these
been
guys are nuts.
fantastic for me. I had a cousin of mine come by, and she lives in New York, and so it wasn't very often that she's out to Oklahoma, but I put down the pedals on the ground that I had come out with this year, and I think it's at 9 different pedals we released this year.
Wow.
And we still got 2 months left, so
Oh, God. Danny's over there going, no.
What could be next? What could be next? He's like, yeah, man.
This is the Christmas drive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because while we were working on that Octa Psi, it was slim. I didn't have a lot of different output. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, any minute now this will be ready.
Yeah.
Any minute now we'll have it all worked out.
I can't wait to see what's next. Not that we don't love what's here already, because we do.
I do. The Octa Psi is really fun. You were asking earlier if I want it to be part of my legacy. I think so because I really like the idea of being one of the, say, first or few to have a high gain analog distortion circuit and a digital system
Yeah.
kind of all mixed up into one, and they
Yep.
play well with each other.
They really do. Because that could have been a landmine. And just the idea of how they're supposed to interact. And
Absolutely. If you don't get the levels right and you don't get the switching between the two absolutely silent, then it's just not fun to make
there is a
music.
landmine setting in there, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna show-
Easter
It
egg.
kind of sounds. I'll play that
If
for
you
you
dial,
later.
if you use the right combination of alt features, it'll trigger a sequence.
We'll do that off camera.
Countdown. 10.
9.
I feel like we could go
we
on
do
forever,
get asked
but we probably
about
need to let them go.
No, this is awesome. Which came after the Noble Screamer?
They all came at the same time.
Oh,
I kid you not. This is how it was.
I had a dream.
Coming back,
A vision.
yeah, it was like that. Coming back from Andy's place, Aaron Pierce and I were in there, and he was saying, well, you know, we need to come up with some mods for this and for Noble's ODR. We need to come out with our own Noble's ODR. And started thinking, what would be fun is if since a Tube Screamer and which was a Nashville staple for quite a long time, and the ODR are kind of funny because they're both this green color. And it
another
literally
Nashville
came to me
staple.
like that. I was like, I wonder if I just divided those 2 circuits in half, and they're radically different from each other. What would it sound like if I put the drive of one into the tone of the other one? And that's the way all of these distortion pedals work, is it's the drive section into the tone section. So that allowed me to then go, oh, wow, I can just take a hard clipping, rat style pedal, and I can mix it with a Boss Super Overdrive, a soft clipper, and I can just mix them at the midway point and create brand new sounds.
Look how excited you got it. He's like, I'm just thinking about more right now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Got a fifth one now that just came to me.
A kitten with the head of a gorilla. That'll be great.
Sorry.
Gorilla.
A gorilla and a snort. I don't know, man.
Could be yeah. Unbelievable.
A Gat.
Yeah, exactly. Is there a MIDI halo?
A MIDI halo in the future.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I heard people asking about
Yes,
that.
we have the board developed, the MIDI board that will slide right in between the jacks there.
Wow.
And Creighton has got all that worked out. But Tackett is our programmer, and his band is Chatpile. He's the drummer in a band called Chatpile, and they have like a month-long tour up through Canada and down the coast here. So
Some nerve being a rock
so
star.
we won't be
what's his
developing the
music.
DSP stuff.
Yeah,
But that's plenty of time for tube
that's exciting.
drives.
I'm very excited about the tube drive.
We're talking high voltage tube drives, 220 volts.
You should call it the Tackett, too. That's just a cool name, man. You can.
Tack it up.
You can
He's our
have that,
DSP
too.
guy, though. We do have a great name for our tube drive.
The Rust Drive?
You can keep that one, right?
Can you tell us, or not on camera?
Wayne, New Jersey.
Wayne,
Wayne,
New
New Jersey.
Jersey.
That is
Shout out to the Hilton Garden Inn. That's
right.
Swanky. It's a swanky Hilton Garden.
Purple
nice
Wayne.
guy.
It's a very nice in
Yes.
Wayne, I
Yeah.
will say.
the
Newton.
Ale House was fantastic.
Yeah, it is. We
All right.
now we're plugging the local pub and
But
pizza.
listen,
Sorry.
we really do thank you guys for
Thank
stopping
you
in
guys.
with
Yes.
us, sitting down,
Appreciate you
taking the
guys.
time. It was awesome.
Really great, Russ. Thank you.
I'm too far away,
Thank you,
Andy.
Rob. I got
you.
the whole
Air
thing
high
covered.
five. Air high five. You're not
You
getting
got
up.
that covered.
You're gonna have to get up to get that tuna sandwich, though. You know.
That is true.
That's a wrap.
Woo.
No, it's a sandwich.
chicken wrap.
We'd like to thank our friends at Robert Keeley Effects, Mesa Boogie Amplification, and Adam Hall North America for allowing us to use their soundstage today. We hope you enjoyed it. For more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe and check us out at AmericanMusical.com.